This week on the podcast, we're joined by Brandee Hommerding, a certified nutrition therapy practitioner and the voice behind Be Collective Wellness and the Healthy Buzz podcast. Brandee is on a mission to help women find the root cause of their GI and hormonal symptoms because she believes every woman deserves better support than being told their symptoms are just in their head. With the training from the Nutrition Therapy Institute and additional certifications in hormone and wellness, Brandee brings deep knowledge and thoroughness to her work, helping clients skip the guesswork and get to the real answers. As a self-proclaimed diet culture dropout, she rejects the idea that health is about shrinking your body. Instead, she offers validation and guidance towards health that feels right, sustainable, and that actually works. And this week on the podcast, we are diving all into how gut health impacts our hormone health. And I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with her. Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Brandee, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today and to talk about a topic that we all know we need to work on, I think, as women and as humans. Let's just be honest. As humans, we all need to do a lot more work here. And there's more and more research coming out, and you're hearing about this more and more in the news. So today, you're going to tell us all about the gut and why it's important for our hormones, our health, our wellness, and to really support these kind of fluctuations that we have with our hormones. So let's dive in. Where do you want to start?
Oh gosh, I am just so excited to be here. So thank you for having me and talking about two of my most favorite subjects, gut health and hormone health. They are so interconnected. You cannot address one without talking about the other because of their interconnectedness. And I don't think enough people realize the impact that their gut health is actually having on their hormone health, because it is a huge player in whether you're having really bad hormone and hormonal symptoms, or if things are going along really smoothly, it could be related to your gut health.
Yeah, it's so true. And, the gut health, it impacts so much. Like we don't realize that it impacts our moods. Like it has this ability to shift how we are feeling day to day in our emotional body. And then I was just reading an article too of now they're discovering that this big connection between the gut and the lungs, right? And people that are struggling with long COVID. And then you just look at all of the things, like if you're struggling with hormone health already, and if you have like lung issues, and if you're having mood disorders, sometimes we are trying to fix all these little fires when really we're not fixing the gasoline that's being poured to keep the blaze going. And the gut is that, right? It's if we don't deal with that, that's just us pouring more and more fuel on this fire that is causing so many symptoms in the body.
Yeah. I always talk to my clients about I understand that you're coming to me with these hormonal symptoms, but what also is going on in your gut? The gut is literally the foundation of health. And if we have some imbalances going on in there, have all these raging symptoms like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux. Those are the obvious GI related symptoms that people will talk about. But then we have the non-obvious GI related stuff. We can have skin issues like acne or rosacea or eczema coming on. We can have sleep issues. We can have mood issues. We can have the hormonal issues, like all these other symptoms that we kind of brush off as something else is and can be related to what actually is happening in your gut.
Yeah, it's so true. I know for myself, and it blows my mind that it took until I was in my mid 30s to find the right naturopathic doctor to help me understand this. But I was constipated almost my whole life, like from birth. Like my mom always said I was that baby that always struggled with constipation. And I kind of wore it as a badge of honor sometimes of being like, I haven't pooped in like 4 days. Like, it'd be like this like big thing of like, yay, right? Like now knowing I'm like, oh my God, it explains so much what was happening in my body, in my health. Because I also had chronic eczema my whole
Mm,
life. And it was really amazing that when we worked on my food sensitivities and healing the gut and healing that leaky gut that I had going on, that my constipation was the first thing that resolved itself. And I have not had it since, which is amazing. Um, but then my skin cleared up for the first time in my life. Like, and I haven't had eczema now for almost 11 years. And it was just working on the gut. And the gut, like at first we healed it from the point of view of like, let's make sure that we don't have leaky gut. Let's heal that gut lining that's happening here and remove some of those sensitivities. Now I can eat any food and it doesn't bother me, which is fantastic. But it was also working on the acid levels, which, you know, when my eczema wasn't fully clearing up, then it was like, okay, am I producing enough acid? Which really, I think a lot of women are like, or a lot of people are like, acid. And it's like, yeah, sometimes when we have that acid reflex, it's because we don't have enough. And so we worked on that, and my gut has been solid. So
mm,
speaking from
yeah.
someone who went through it all.
Yeah, and so relatable. I first of all, I think that there has been so much stigma around pooping. And so, especially for women, oh my gosh, we don't do anything like that. Oh, like there's
Yep.
so much stigma around it that for years, especially as children and then going into like our adolescence, and we have so many things that are changing with our bodies as we go through our teenage years that then, oh my gosh, poop on top of periods, how do we deal with all these changes happening in our bodies? And so we just kind of like brush this all aside and put it down to be like, this is my normal. I've
Yeah.
never had normal poops. That's not normal. Because if you think about it, there must have been something going on as a baby too, to think about like some gut dysfunction happening or a barrier dysfunction happening, in which then led to these symptoms that as a baby child, you're also very constipated. So yeah, it gets kind of just pushed aside as like, this is who I am and this is how it's always been. But that's not normal. If you think about like our pets, for example, they have very regular bowel movements. And if something goes off with their bowel movements, we are calling the vet and we're like, oh my gosh, my dog has runny stools or they have blood in their
Yep.
stools. And we're very hitting that panic button because our dogs cannot communicate to us what is happening, right? Whereas as adults, we just kind of be like, oh, it's okay. I'll get over it. I'll throw some supplement on it and see if it will make it better. And it might temporarily, or it could make things worse too.
Mm-hmm.
So one, there's so much stigma around it, but then two, then when we think about, like you mentioned, like food sensitivities are this whole controversial topic in the functional wellness space, because and I can see both sides of things. Yes, we can have these foods that can be causing a lot of inflammation in our body, which we then need to reduce the inflammation, so we need to remove these things. But the food is not the root cause. The
Yeah.
root cause is going to be something else going on in your body to cause the leaky gut. So it could be an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria, not having enough beneficial bacteria, having parasites or candida or something like that. And the stomach acid piece is huge when it comes to our overall digestive health and how that impacts our hormones.
Yeah, it's so true. So let's dive in a little bit about gut health and our hormones that as women we face and the hormonal balances and how they all kind of link, in particular looking
Mhm.
at estrogen, because estrogen is a
Mhm.
big one when it comes to our gut health.
Yeah. So, when we are creating and making our hormones, we need to use them and then we need to get rid of them. We don't want them to continually compile and compound in our body, because that can make us be very, very sick, right? So one of the ways that we get rid of our hormones after we've used them is through our bowel movements, our stool material. Like, we need to use them and then we need to get rid of them. But we have to take the hormone and we have to change it from this cholesterol backing, it's fat, it's a fat based hormone, and we need to make that more water like in order to get rid of it. And so we do that through phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification that happens in our liver. And through this process, we're making that hormone more water-like so that we can get it into our bile and get it into our stool and get it out of our system. Now, like you talked about, estrogen particularly is important with this. With phase 2 detoxification, it's really, really important that we have adequate, what word am I looking for? That we have very efficient detoxification happening. And so we don't want to have a really fast phase 1 and a very sluggish phase 2. And then phase 3, if we think about what phase 3 is, it's actually getting the things out of our system. So it all starts with, is our system to eliminate open? Are we pooping every day? Are we sweating? Are we urinating appropriately? Like having good flush of our toxins? We detox through our breath, our sweat, our pee, and our poo. And so if any of those pathways are blocked or hindered or sluggish, we can have a sluggish, like this backfill of hormones happening and other toxins that we're trying to get out of our body.
Yeah, and I think where so many of us have never been taught or explained to is that I think there's this idea in our heads that estrogen comes into our body at the first half of our cycle. Our body uses the estrogen and then it just kind of magically disappears. Like it's like almost like it's almost like it's a product that when we use it, it burns off, right? Like it just vaporizes. And people don't understand that there's actually a process that it's utilized and then it has to move through the system to be eliminated out. And if it's not, we come into a bigger issue, which do you want to talk about what's the bigger issue if we don't have a good digestive system and our gut is having issues? What happens to that estrogen in phase 3 of the liver, which is being housed in our gut?
Yeah. So if we are not eliminating properly, we will have that hormone that we're trying to get rid of sit in our system longer. It can get deconjugated as well. So when we think about how we are eliminating our hormones, it's going to get attached to a water molecule. When we detox, we have to have a water molecule available to attach that toxin, that hormone, whatever we're trying to get rid of out of our body, attached to that. Now, there's something called the estrobolome. The estrobolome is a group of microbes that are going to produce enzymes that are going to impact the way that you're detoxing. So there's an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. When beta-glucuronidase is elevated, this is an enzyme that is created from the overgrowth of these bad bacteria. That beta-glucuronidase is going to break the bond between that water molecule and that hormone that we're trying to get rid of. And it allows that hormone to then recirculate in our body, and it can add to estrogen dominant type symptoms. So I've seen it where people will have estrogen dominant symptoms, but their estrogen is very low because one, also we have to think about in relationship to progesterone, but is it because their detox pathways are compromised and that estrogen is recirculating? So if we're improving that gut health, we can really start to improve the way that they're able to detox their hormones appropriately. So back to that beta-glucuronidase. So this is going to, when it's not elevated, then we can have the estrogen attached to that water molecule to make it inactive so it can get out of your body. But if it's not, it's recirculated and it can really impact like the different hormonal symptoms that you're feeling.
Very interesting. So I have a question for you. Then, if we are doing a hormone testing, whether it's through our serum or through something like the Mira device, that estrogen level that we're seeing on there, if that is low, is that not registering that extra estrogen that's now circulating in our system because of the detoxification pathway that's been reactivated?
That's a really good question. I'm not 100% on because like with the Mira, we're looking at urine testing and we're looking at metabolites, but it's just looking at estrogen as a whole, where it's not looking at like let's say a Dutch test, right? A Dutch
Right.
test, we're going to see the three main pathways that estrogen is going to detox. And if you're shuttling down, remember, the 2-OH is the one that we want to be pushing most of our estrogen down. And if we're pushing down the 4-OH or the 16-OH pathway, we can have a lot more estrogen dominant symptoms because of the way that what pathway we're pushing that estrogen down.
Right, right. And maybe this is for a different conversation, but that can also link to those mutations in genetics as well,
Yeah.
which
Uh-huh.
lead to some of the cancer concerns that so many women hear about with estrogen that,
hmm
it's not estrogen as this bad thing. It's about how our body actually detoxifies it out of our system. So,
Yeah. I think too, like, to rephrase this, estrogen is not the villain.
no.
Like, it might sound like right now that Kate and I are like, estrogen is bad. Estrogen is not bad, but estrogen, when it's not being detoxed properly, can be linked to more issues and symptoms if we're not getting rid of our hormones appropriately.
Yeah. And, well, we even hear this with histamine reactions in the body too, of that, estrogen can be anti-inflammatory, but it can also be pro-inflammatory too,
hmm
because it's like
hmm
Goldilocks, right? Like we want this perfect level. If we have way too low of levels of estrogen, then we get a lot of these symptoms in our body that don't feel awesome. And that, a lot of us women will say like the sore breasts and just not feeling great. And then if we have too much estrogen, we also feel those horrible
hmm
symptoms, right? And so the whole idea is our body's super intelligent. It knows how much estrogen we need, and we need estrogen. We need it for our bones, our brains, our mood. Like we need it for every aspect of our body. It is a full body hormone, not just for reproduction. And same with progesterone. But when those levels aren't at the optimal range or level or being detoxified properly, that's when we have these host of issues that
hmm
can manifest in the body from, like
Yeah.
you said, PMS symptoms to, perimenopausal symptoms for a lot of women
hmm
that are in their 40s, right? And so it's really about how can we, I think going back to the core of this conversation, how can we nurture that gut to make sure that we're getting enough estrogen processed in the body, but we're also getting that estrogen out. Like we're able to utilize it the way we need to. So
Yeah. And I think something too that you touched on, like, estrogen is going to help with histamine. And a lot of women in perimenopause are dealing with histamine symptoms of like the itchy ears, the itchy skin as estrogen starts to decline. So we can think about like the role that estrogen declining is playing there. But then also, progesterone is helpful in stabilizing our mast cells. So thinking again, perimenopause, maybe we're not having as robust of ovulations as we had in our 20s and 30s, or maybe we're all skipping ovulation altogether as cycles become more irregular. And so we don't have the progesterone to help stabilize those mast cells.
yeah. And once again, mast cells are, if I remember correctly, they have a huge role as well in our gut health, right? Like it's all
hmm
linked back to the gut again. So
Yep.
if you're dealing with histamine stuff, gut is always the first place to kind of start of healing that gut.
Yep.
Let's talk a little
Absolutely.
bit about hormonal birth control and its impact on the gut. Because I don't think well, I shouldn't say any, a lot of us do not realize how impactful birth control is on the gut. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with birth control because I see the greatness in it in that it helps to prevent unwanted contracept or unwanted pregnancies. But then when I look at now what I know and what I've learned in the past few years about the impacts it has on our overall health and things like our gut, part of me is like, I don't know if that's the best way moving forward. So I would love to hear from you how hormonal birth control impacts our gut health.
Yeah, this is a really interesting thing because looking back at my own like journey, and I had 17 years use of like between hormonal birth control pills and an IUD. One, because I was not educated and I did not know. But if I look back, I had raging GI symptoms when I was using the pill. Like, I was super bloated. I was constipated. Like, I was so bloated. I did look like I was pregnant at times. I think same thing. I maybe pooped twice, 3 times a week. It was not uncommon for me
Mhm.
to be constipated. And passing the Tums bottle around with my friends all the time because I had so much acid reflux and just feeling so uncomfortable. And I'm like, now looking back, I'm like, oh, how much of that was related to the pill? Granted, diet and lifestyle definitely played a role in that, but like a lot of that probably was contributed to the oral contraceptives I was using at that time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what exactly does birth control do to our gut health?
Yeah. So this is really a fascinating topic. And actually, I'm in school right now to obtain my bachelor's in holistic nutrition. And I'm doing a research paper all about the impact of oral birth control or oral contraceptives is having on gut health. And it's really fascinating because even in the last like 5 years, there's been so many studies done on this. And what they're seeing is that the hormonal contraceptives, the synthetic hormones, is actually lowering the beneficial bacteria that we have available. So if we think about that, we have to have appropriate amount of beneficial bacteria, the good bacteria. They play such an important role when it comes to our gut barrier function. They produce vitamins like vitamin B, different B vitamins. They help with iron absorption. They're going to protect us against pathogenic bacteria or different microbes that are coming in. So the oral contraceptive pill has been shown to decrease our beneficial bacteria and has also shown to have it, what word am I looking for? Enhance the overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria. So many people are dealing with like the overgrowth of these opportunistic bacteria that can lead to something like SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. But then also, this fascinating research study that I found was about gastroparesis. So gastroparesis is slowed gastric emptying. So delayed movement, slower motility of things moving through our GI system. When you have slow motility, you will think of like, I am very constipated, I am very bloated, maybe nauseous, maybe having a lot of acid reflux going on because your food's not moving out of your stomach and through your small intestine and into your large intestine in a proper timely fashion. And so that gastroparesis, there's a huge correlation between the onset of oral contraceptive use and an increase of a gastroparesis diagnosis. So thinking about if we're slowing everything down, right? Our transit time, not only is this slowing the rate at which we are getting rid of our toxins, our hormones, things that were done with metabolic waste, but that gives you this huge breeding ground for an overgrowth of bacteria. Then we can have that SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, be something that pops up again. And then another fascinating research study that I found, a couple linked to the onset of oral contraceptive use and a correlation between getting a Crohn's disease diagnosis. So Crohn's is when we're going to have different like ulcers in the GI system that can be really problematic and very debilitating when you have this Crohn's disease. And one of the studies that I looked at said that for each year of oral contraceptive use for somebody who got a Crohn's disease diagnosis, there was a 30% increase in the surgeries that they required for each year of oral contraceptive use. So I mean, there's just huge
Wow.
research showing that like the synthetic hormones don't have the same benefits as your natural production of hormones. And so they even said that in a bunch of these different studies is that like they notice for some of the studies for people who were not using oral contraceptives, they noticed changes in the microbiome throughout the different phases of the cycle. So the fluctuations that we have can also influence what our microbiome looks like through the different phases. And it's just so fascinating.
I was gonna say that is super fascinating to think about that our cycles, which obviously are a reflection of like which hormones are most prominent, affects what kind of bacteria growth we have in
Mhm.
our gut. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think the thing is here, like you said before, like it's like birth control kind of feels like a double-edged sword sometimes, right?
Hmm.
Like There are benefits and there are some consequences, but I think what the biggest takeaway that I'm learning and understanding for myself and looking at my clients that I'm working with and understanding the research is like short-term versus long-term use, right?
Yeah.
Many times, birth control, like the pill was designed to be something to be used during set small windows of time. But for people like me, I was on it for 17 years and didn't bat an eye to it. And nobody educated me on it until I started learning more about like holistic nutrition and the impact of like actually got in touch with my hormones. I'm like, oh, hello. I haven't had hormones for 17 years. At all of my 20s, I did not have natural production of hormones, which is wild to think
Yeah.
about. But yeah, like I think that there's a time and a place, and understanding the consequences, the synthetic hormones that you're utilizing is very important so that women can make an informed decision around their health care.
And I think that's been really, really lost in, uh, uh, and I don't know this for sure, right? Because I haven't researched it or looked at the stats, but my gut feeling is that birth control is one of the most prescribed prescriptions for women. I could be wrong because I don't know what the stats are for anxiety and depression, but
Right.
my guess is birth control is probably one of the top ones. And it is one that I think it truly is a prime example of how we have lost the connection about what it truly was about and the boundaries. Because and we forget this, every medicine does have parameters, right? Like you don't want to overdose on anything. And in the sense, are we overdosing the female body with
Mm.
birth control, not in a single dosage, but in the longevity that we're putting people on this pill for, right? And so
Hmm.
is that length of time creating extreme damage to our health and in particular our gut health, which now we talked about at the beginning is linked to so many other systems in our body. So when we're trying to heal these things, do we have to look at that? Do we have to look at the use of birth control? And is it really in alignment with our health goals? I
Hmm.
don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
spitting out ideas here, but
Yeah. Well, and thinking too, like, what is the birth control pill being used for? Is it for pregnancy prevention? We can
Mhm.
explore other options that are maybe non-hormonal. And I'm going to beat this drum all day long. Why is it only the women's responsibility to
Yep.
have birth control, like the options for that? Why aren't we putting more pressure on men? What is wrong with using a condom?
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, haven't we outgrown that phase of being like, oh my gosh, condoms aren't I don't know, don't offer the same experience. True. Maybe they don't, but you are also sacrificing your hormones and not having those hormonal fluctuations if you are like, okay, I'll just go on the pill.
Yeah. I was
Come
reading in,
on.
I believe it was the book Sweetening the Pill. I think it was that book that I was reading on the pill that she talked, and I loved how she put this is that somewhere along the line, as women, we've been brainwashed to have fear if we're not on the pill. Like if we're not
Mm.
on the
Mhm.
pill, we're going to get pregnant, right? And we almost feel like it's more superior than that of condoms when in fact the pregnancy protection is the same, right?
Mhm.
But it's been so ingrained in us that if we don't have it, we might get pregnant. And then if we are not on it and we've had sex with a condom, we have this like anxiety and this panic attack of like, oh my God, am I going to get pregnant? Right. Like, and we
Right?
forget that, the pill isn't the ultimum, right? In fact, condoms are probably better, you can argue, in the sense that one, it allows you to still cycle, right? So it's not impacting
Mhm.
your hormonal makeup, but it also is a barrier protection, right? Like we forget that
Right.
birth control does not protect us against STIs, right? And
Right,
that's where
exactly.
this other thing is really, really superior, but we don't feel like it's going to protect us. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That makes a ton of sense. And I think that's a really important piece is like you don't have the STI protection with just birth control. So then it's like another layer, something to think about when you are engaging with your partner, whether they are a partner for a lifetime or a partner for one time. Like maybe those conversations need to be had as well. Be like,
Yep.
what's your health history? What does it look like? Because yeah,
Yeah. No, most
women brush
definitely.
it up. But then also, like going back to like other times that we could use hormonal birth control is sometimes people are using it to address hormonal imbalances and the symptoms that they're having. Now there's a time and a place, I feel like, for this. If you're just like, oh, I have really bad periods, well, why do you have really bad periods? We need to explore that a little bit further. Diet has such a huge influence on that. Diet and lifestyle, like, is it maybe you're not eating enough fiber and that can influence your periods? You're eating too much processed foods that can influence your periods. You are drinking too much. That definitely influences your periods and your hormones. I will tell you, I don't know when this is coming out, but like the time between the holidays and January, people, they change their dietary habits, they change their alcohol consumption, and then come around January, they are going to have an awful period if they are
Mhm.
not a little bit more aware, because they're doing a lot more inflammatory things. Now, it's not to say that you can't have the cookies and go to the holiday party and enjoy yourself, but we also have to have those foundations at the forefront. Are we eating whole foods? Are we getting enough fiber? Are we drinking water? Like, what can we do to support your body?
And it's funny that you mentioned that because as you're talking, I almost want to argue that it starts like end of October
Oh,
because like I have three kids and the amount of Halloween candy that's in this house right now, like,
mhm,
and I am somebody who is aware, but you find yourself going, but I just want a little piece of chocolate. And it's just a small
mhm,
chocolate bar. But now I'm
mhm.
having them daily versus like
Uh-huh.
having it once a month or once a week, right? Like it's because it's
Right.
there and it's accessible. So Halloween kind of feeds into it, and then we have Thanksgiving for you that are in the US. We have ours in October, and then it leads right into Christmas. So it's almost like back to back holidays where it's these big family gatherings where there's a lot of sweets. Like I know for us, November we do a lot of baking and in preparation for Christmas, and so yeah, like I just
Yeah.
my system feels overloaded. We're not even close to Christmas yet. And
Yeah, exactly.
and it's the stress too, right? Like we got to remember that
Yep.
when it's everything's interlinked, right? So we start to have different habits with our eating because of this holidays quarter. Let's call it a holiday
Let's
quarter.
quarter. Yep.
Yeah. And so then we're eating poorly, and then our gut starts to act up, which we now have already talked about how the gut then can create inflammation in the body, right? And inflammation in the brain, which then can cause those mood disorders, which can therefore increase stress. And then we have like all these expectations that we put ourselves into for as women of like cooking the big meals, hosting all the people, buying all the presents, setting up all the Christmas decorations, all the stuff. And then we wonder why we feel like crap, right?
Yep.
Because it's not just one thing. It's not just the stress of Christmas. It's not just the food that we ate that one night. It's all of it and how they all
Mhm.
play together. And the gut is a big part of that.
Yeah, such a big part. So again, like we need to make sure that we are having a whole food based diet that is going to be supportive of your gut health. Getting enough fiber, like you should be aiming to get 25 grams of fiber a day. Now, it just does not mean that you need to go and you need to track everything all the time to be like, am I getting enough fiber?
Yeah.
But start to understand what foods are rich in fiber. Berries are huge in fiber. And a lot of people don't think like a strawberry or a raspberry. Raspberries have so much fiber in them. Like having your berries, having your fresh veggies, having, nuts and seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, those are great to add to even like your oatmeal. Oats are really great for fiber. Whole grains in general, like having a lot of diverse different options of fiber can be really beneficial for your gut health. Not just for like, fiber is like the unsung hero. I feel like sometimes fiber is going to help with your bowel motility, help move things through your system. However, if you do not currently eat a diet that's rich in fiber, adding a ton of fiber at one time, your body's going to be so angry at you. You're going to be constipated. You're going to be bloated because it's not used to processing that much fiber. So
Hmm.
baby step up if you're not used to that right now. But then also fiber is great for blood sugar. Fiber is great for cholesterol. Like there's so many great
Hmm.
benefits when we think about not just gut health, but the other things that fiber can impact and support your body with.
When I was on my little, I'm gonna fix my hormones for perimenopause, that's when I really started to, and I kind of always knew this, but I really made it a dedicated practice of having sauteed vegetables at breakfast, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
making sure I had my spinach and my broccoli. Like I would make this whole green thing, and I do it every day. And a lot of people are like, "How do you have time?" And really, I think in our heads we think it's a big thing, but to saute vegetables is not much. It does not take much time. It
No,
takes like
nope.
no time, especially when you're doing spinach, onions, mushrooms, and some broccoli. It's really quick to
Mm-hmm.
just quickly chop those up and just throw them in a pan, lightly
Mm-hmm.
saute them, and have them with your eggs. But it was the biggest impact I had, I think, that I seen in just feeling more regulated in my hormones, not even in
Mm-hmm.
my bowel movements. Like this is on like sugar regulation, on just feeling more balanced emotionally in my moods. And I could really see that shift happening in my
Mm-hmm.
hormones. Um, it was
Yep.
a game changer. So fiber is definitely really important. But I think a lot of us, once again, we've been raised and trained to believe that we don't eat fiber at breakfast, like maybe fruit.
Uh-huh.
But how many of us grew up with vegetables at breakfast on our plate? None
No,
of
it was
us.
cereal,
Yep,
Lucky Charms, and
exactly.
Cocoa Puffs.
Cereal and
There
toast.
was no fiber on my plate growing up.
None, right? And I might have had a piece of vegetable. I always had fruit, but maybe a little bit of vegetable at lunch, but rarely. It
Hmm.
was always just at dinner time, right? Like dinner is when you got
Hmm.
your vegetables, lunch is when you got your fruit, and breakfast was like whatever was processed and in the cupboard. So,
Yep. Yep. Isn't that funny how we create these rules? And these are rules that I often talk to my clients about. Like, somebody along the line told us that we needed to have eggs and toast and pastries for breakfast, but you can have a salad, you can have a sandwich, you can have soup for breakfast.
yeah,
Your body doesn't care what time of day it is. There's not food that it correlates. Like, it's breakfast time. These are the foods we eat. It just wants the nutrients.
yeah,
So, however, you can get your nutrients in your fats, your carbs, your protein, your fiber, your micronutrients. When you consume your macronutrients, you get your micronutrients too.
yeah,
So, having a very diverse diet is really important because we need to have various sources to get all of the different micronutrients.
yeah.
So, I mean, we are creatures of habit. I am definitely a creature of habit, and I have like a couple different breakfasts that I kind of rotate through. But I I often tell clients, let's change out one of the vegetables each week. So if you're making, your eggs with mushrooms, spinach, and onions every week, what if one week we did bell pepper instead of onions? Or what if we did
Yes.
zucchini instead of the mushrooms? Like bringing in different things and having a lot of diversity in our diet is really important for our gut microbiome.
Yeah. It was really interesting when I was dating my husband, we went on our first trip together to Vietnam, which is he's Vietnamese, and we're staying with his family. And what we got for breakfast was soup. And I remember being like, this is the most awkward thing ever. Like I'm eating hot soup in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they were onto something that I was not aware of 16 years
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Yes, we can learn a lot from other cultures when we really
mhm.
immerse ourselves in those cultures when we travel.
Yeah, it's so true. They definitely break the habits of the boxed cereal in the cupboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I just that comes to my mind because that's what I lived on as a kid. Like that was just
Same.
breakfast. So
Yep.
let's
Same.
talk about
That
weight.
and toaster strudels. I gotta throw toaster strudels.
Pop-Tarts. All
Yes.
this processed stuff. My
Yep.
kids have no idea what Pop-Tarts are, and I'm like, you never need to know.
I mean, they'd be good for a backpacking trip or a hut trip, something where you're off the grid and you need quick energy sources. Sure. But every single day, like I had it, no, no, no,
Yep.
no. Vegetables are
Yep.
important. Yep.
So we've talked a little bit about the importance of fiber and creating diversity with your meals. What are some other ways that we can support our gut to improve our hormone health?
Yeah. Well, this is going to sound like the dumbest thing ever, but you need to chew your food. So people are like, oh, I was expecting something really fancy. No, I need you to sit down. I need you to be present. You need to engage your senses. So when we first even like look at a menu, we've all had this where we started to have our mouth water, like, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. My mouth is watering. Your mouth watering is actually digestive enzymes being secreted in your saliva to help you break down the food that you're about to eat. So
Hmm.
there's a reason for that. So the more that we can actually engage our senses and let our body know, hey, we're here to eat, we're going to sit down. Maybe you're taking a couple belly breaths before, you're going to center yourself, you're going to acknowledge the food on your plate, and then you're going to use your utensil, or maybe you're not, maybe you're eating a sandwich, but you're actually going to chew your food. Like
Hmm.
the days of the world say that you should chew your food like 20, like 30 times. I'm going to say 30 is a lot. I admittedly do not chew my food 30 times, but can you aim for 20? And a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, that is so long. It should take you like 20 to 30 minutes to eat a meal. So
Hmm.
sitting down, chewing your food, putting your fork down between bites, none of this shoveling it in and eating on the run. Like eating on the run is not doing your digestive system any favors, because it's not, when we are present, we are engaging our parasympathetic nervous system to help stimulate the appropriate gastric juices that need to be secreted during digestion. If we're running around doing things, the body's like, oh, we are not going to prioritize digestion at all. So if you feel like you're always bloated and constipated, especially after meals, well, did you chew your food or were you eating on the run?
Yeah.
So this sounds so basic, but chew your food. Like
Yeah.
your body
And
needs to
here's the thing.
eat.
If you're like 20 times, that's way too much. Can you just chew 5 more times past the point of uncomfortableness? That's
Mhm.
what I always tell my
Mhm.
kids. Like, if you feel like
Yeah.
you want to swallow, just chew 5 more times.
Right? Yep. It's so funny. But okay, so yes, we need to be present. We need to chew our food thoroughly. Having the diversity in our diet is really important. And I'm going to throw this out there. This is going to go against what a lot of people thought that they should be doing, but stop chugging water at mealtime. So, diet culture told us if you drink a whole bunch of water right before you eat your meal, then you're going to be fuller. And so then you eat less food. Okay. First of all, no, we don't need to decrease the amount of food that we're eating. Most women are not eating enough food. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But when you're drinking water, a lot of water before mealtime and with mealtime, you're diluting your stomach acid. Stomach acid is such a key part of our digestive process. If we don't have enough stomach acid, then that's going to delay your gastric emptying. It's going to inhibit then the processes that happen as that food is leaving your stomach. It inhibits our body breaking down, digesting protein appropriately. So if somebody's like, oh, I no longer can tolerate eating protein, animal protein, well, you probably have a stomach acid issue. So stop chugging water at mealtime. You can have sips of water, but stop just like drinking. Everybody will be like, oh, that's when I drink most of my water is when I sit down
Yeah.
to eat a meal, because they finally stop moving in the day to recognize that they're thirsty and they're hungry. But we need to hydrate our body throughout the whole day, not just at mealtime.
Yes. That's a big one. It's a
Hmm.
hard one. It's a hard
Yeah,
one.
it is a hard one, but you'll be like, oh my gosh, this does make such a big difference once you recognize that.
What are your feelings on probiotics? Because I get this question quite often from clients of like, do I need to be on a probiotic? And I
Yeah.
have my answer, but I'm curious what your answer is.
Well, like everything, I feel like in health and wellness and nutrition is it depends.
Yeah.
So sometimes people will feel like they feel a lot worse. They have more GI symptoms when they bring in a probiotic. And that could be a definite huge sign that there's gut dysbiosis happening, maybe particularly small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO. So I would say, and it depends on like, I like to use GI map testing, so a comprehensive stool test to see actually what does the beneficial bacteria in your body look like. Some people do need to have a probiotic, but we also need to look at like, do you just need to increase the amount of fiber you're eating to supply your bacteria with food with probiotics? Do you need to have more fermented foods in your diet? Do you need more prebiotic foods in your diet? Stress can really negatively impact our beneficial bacteria and decrease them. So there's this whole big approach. So the answer is it depends on the person. Some
Yep.
people who are dealing with constipation, and bringing in a probiotic can really help their bowel motility, where some people dealing with constipation, they bring in a probiotic and it makes it worse. So we have to understand like what is the underlying root cause of your symptoms and why you want to bring in a probiotic versus can we get it from food?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think sometimes we are so reliant on taking stuff to make ourselves feel better. We somehow
Mhm.
think that medication or supplements are going to be these things that are going to be the quick fix to get us to the end goal, where sometimes we actually have to just do a little bit more work and we may not need those, right? So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I have loved your perspective on the gut. I'm really glad that we talked about birth control in the gut because that is such a huge one and
Mm,
it's a sensitive one, and I get that. But I'm really glad that we're able to explore that a little bit and for people to have some tools to walk away with of just simple things, right? Before we jump to
right.
probiotics all the time as our solution, chewing our food, drinking less
Yeah.
water. How can we have these little reminders in the back of our head of knowing that the impact is for full body health? So, thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. All of your contact information, your links, your programs, I'm going to have that all in the show notes for people to go check out Brandee's work. And also know that Brandee has an amazing podcast called the Healthy Buzz Podcast. So go and check that out if you want to learn more about nutrition and its impact on your hormonal health and how just to really support your body so that it can be healthy and it can find this inner wisdom and balance to heal itself. So thank you so much, Brandee, for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Kate. It's a great conversation.
Friends, have you had a chance to download my new free ebook? Maybe it's not you. The Truth on PMS and How You Can Take Back Control of Your Cycle is now available. This is truly a book that I think needs to be in the hands of every woman who struggles with the second half of their menstrual cycle. So if this is you, click on the link in the show notes and download your free copy today. And remember to subscribe to this podcast and share a review if you loved this episode. Until next time, remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living.